皆さんこんにちは and welcome to Shogo's podcast. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about the Bakumatsu period, the end of the Edo period. So I usually talk a lot about my thoughts or my principles of life and what I've experienced and such. But today I think I'd like to talk a little bit about the history. It's because recently I've made a video talking about the 5 facts you didn't know about Shinsengumi. Well, I don't know, maybe the video might be already out or it hasn't been out yet, or I don't know, I'll have to adjust the schedule after recording this. But anyways, that video will be definitely coming out before or after the Shinsengumi facts video. So as I was talking about the history of Shinsengumi, I really thought I should again explain a little bit about how the Bakumatsu history basically what happened during that period, because it is a little bit complicated, and if you don't understand how the Japanese society works, it's really difficult to understand what's really going on. So I just wanted to, in today's podcast, I just wanted to quickly wrap it up for you. So whenever you have an occasion to have someone ask you what was up with the Bakumatsu period, or if there's someone, if you have an occasion of watching an anime or drama based on that time period, you'll be able to understand what everything was all about. So the story of Bakumatsu starts from when Perry, an American, he belonged to the Marines, I believe, and he came to Japan to force Japan to open for trade. Now, this was because during that time, the U.S. was hunting whales near the oceans in Japan, near the oceans of Japan, and they were hunting the oils for running their machinery, and it was for their lamps too, for fire, and for light, I guess, not for fire, for fire for the lights, yeah. And also, so they basically wanted a place for their ships to replenish water and food as kind of like a resting point. But if they come over to the oceans near Japan, going back to their home, US, is a little bit far away, and they might run out of water and food, and the people on the ships might get too tired, right? So they wanted to use Japan's ports as a place for them to rest, and refill everything, yeah. But Japan at that time, during the Edo period, because of the ultimate control of the Tokugawa Shogunate, the Edo Bakufu, Japan has been not completely isolated. There were some ports in some countries that Japan traded with, but it definitely was restricted a lot, especially most people could never leave the country in the first place. So it was much, much more difficult for other countries overseas to interact with Japan. But Perry at that time came in, and he basically forced Japan to open for trade. With his big battleships. They will eventually be called Kurofune in Japan, black ships it means. So at that time, Japanese people were like, what the heck is that? I mean, because they didn't interact with overseas countries for such a long time, the Edo period lasted for 250 years, the government itself, the shogunate, did succeed in controlling the people and maintaining peace for more than 2 centuries, but they were definitely a lot late in terms of technology and its evolution and everything, right? So they were super surprised by all the weaponry and all the items they had and everything. And the government basically said, okay, we are going to be obeying you. And they basically just abolished the policy of restricting trade they've been maintaining for many, many years. And they just obeyed, the orders of Perry, and they actually signed an unequal treaty too, just as they were told. So this event basically brought Japan into chaos. Yeah. So a lot of samurai were basically they believed the shogunate. Of course, they trusted it as their lord, right? The top lord, their top leaders. But they were very dissatisfied with this decision, because basically they were just weak and they didn't even fight back. There was no proper negotiation. They just said, okay, we were going to be obeying you, and they just signed the treaty and everything. So especially the prefectures, or basically at that time would be called the clans, the Han, it's called in Japanese, the clans, the Han, that were farther away from the shogunate, like for example the southern parts of Japan, were especially not satisfied with this decision, because the prefectures and the clans that are farther away from the capital at that time, the Edo period is the capital is Edo, Tokyo today, right? So the prefectures that were way farther away from Edo were the people who were distrusted, or not much trusted by the shogunate. Because when the Edo shogunate formed in the 17th century, the beginning of the 17th century in 1603, they basically let the trusted samurai build their clans near the capital, and the samurai clans that they did not trust, they forced them to live farther away from the capital. Very simple, but that was a good way for them to stop any riots and rebellions from happening. And also the samurai clans, in order for them to stay poor, this shogunate had a system called Sankin Kotai, which is basically a system where the samurai clans needs to have a parade. Basically, they need to walk to the capital every 2 years. Yeah, they need to come and go back every 2 years with their own money with a proper parade. The parade literally means a parade. They needed these kind of people holding these flags. This person needs to be holding this cage. This person, they needed a certain number of people, and they had to pay for all of that. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that the clans that were farther away from the Edo capital were they were much more, they disliked the shogunate compared to the clans that were living closer to the Edo period. Edo capital, sorry. So anyways, the clans that were especially away from the Edo, the southern parts of Japan, like the Choshu clan of Yamaguchi Prefecture right now, my last name, and also the Satsuma clan, and also Tosa clans, these were all clans that were very far away from the capital. They were especially very frustrated with the shogunate's decision of just giving up and not doing any proper negotiations or not even fighting back. So these people started rebellions, basically starting riots to try to overthrow the shogunate. Yeah. So this is how the Civil War period, of the end of the Edo period, the Bakumatsu period started. Very simple. And this from here is the part that gets a little bit complicated. In the video where I explained about the 5 facts you didn't want to know about Shinsengumi, I talked a little bit about the emperor faction and also the shogunate faction. So basically the emperor's side and the shogunate side. So what does this even mean, right? What are these emperors and shogunates? What are their relationships? So basically the shogunate, we need to, if I can quickly explain to you again what the shogunate is in the first place. The shogunate is the government run by samurai, but their privileges, their rights to rule the country, govern the country, was given from the emperor. So throughout Japanese history, the emperor has always been the top person, most important person, has the most amount of power because they have a long history. So the shogunate is basically just trusted by the emperor to run the country. But in the past, when they actually were entrusted with the rights to govern the country, that was the only option that the emperor had. Basically, they couldn't just disobey the shogunate because they had too much power at that time already. So it was kind of like an even relationship, or sometimes maybe the emperor was weaker, but still no one can disobey the emperor completely, that kind of stuff. And so the side who wanted to establish the new government, they needed some kind of authority to have people trust them, right? Even if one clan said, we're going to be making a new government, if they didn't have any backup authority, no one would follow them, right? Who would trust them? So what they did is that they tried to get cooperation from the emperor, actually. So they went directly to the emperor and said, the shogunate you cannot trust the shogunates. They're unworthy of running this country anymore. Please give us the power to run this country. But for a long time, of course, the emperor, the imperial court were like, who the heck are you guys? You guys were just one clan that's far away from the capital, right? Why should we trust you, right? And for a long time, of course, that did not work out. But at the point, again, when Shinsengumi formed, the shogunate still had the power. Even after Japan opened its borders, there was a lot of rebellions and riots happening all over Japan, the shogunate still had the power. But eventually, the shogunate's power got weaker, and then the emperor eventually thought, okay, I guess what these people are saying is true. The shogunate really cannot be trusted because they are getting weaker. So at some point, the emperor said, okay, so you are going to be the next rulers of Japan. And they gave the rights to rule Japan, basically. The emperor was still on top of that new organization, basically. But of course, the people who are actually doing the politics were not the emperor, So they formed a new government, and that is when Shinsengumi became the terrorists. Yeah, because the power of ruling, the governing the country, basically transferred from the shogunate to the new government. Yeah, so that's the reason why the people who were on the shogunate side lost all of their powers when the shogunate was abolished. Yeah, and were gone. So this is how that flip happened. Yeah. So the new government basically obtained the power to govern Japan, and they wiped out all of the shogunate's power inside, and that's the reason why Shinsengumi was completely torn down and destroyed as well. So this is actually the main battle that happened, the main civil war that happened, and we could just end the story here. It is still understandable, and this is from where the Meiji government really forcibly trying to learn more about the Western powers and import all of their weapons and try to become stronger, and it leads to all the wars with the Qing dynasty, China, the war with Russia, and so on and so forth, leads to the World War II. And I've actually explained that in one of the main videos too, right? Yeah. And in between there, if we could explain a little bit, there was one more war called the Seinan War. Now, if you might remember me explaining about the real last samurai called Saigo Takamori, he was one of the rebellious clans originally that belonged to the Satsuma clan in Kagoshima Prefecture. So he was from there, and he was one of the people who established a new government together, a new Meiji government, westernized government together. However, after the war between the old shogunate ended and the Meiji government was established, it wasn't completely, what should I say, all safe and peaceful, actually. Of course, there were many people who fought together to establish a new government, but of course not everyone had the same ideas and ideals, basically, to run this new government too, right? And what happened when they established a new Meiji government is that the samurai, basically the original class system that existed in Japan, the samurai, peasants, the craftsmen, and merchants, this class system was completely abolished, and they followed the rules of the Western world. At this time, they actually got the constitution from Germany and so on and so forth. So basically, all of the citizens became equal. So the rights that the samurai originally had, even though they fought for the country, right? There was a lot of samurai in the original clans that fought for the country, and they desperately grasped the power to actually govern Japan. Once the government was actually made, the government told them, thank you so much for fighting for us. Now you are not going to be samurai anymore, and you're going to be equal citizens with everyone else, and live with it. This is how we're going to be doing it. And then everyone was like, what? I mean, like, we fought for a new world, and we did not expect that we are going to be losing all of our rights as a warrior, as a samurai, and we're going to be as the same rank as all of the peasants and craftsmen and merchants that, we were able to be, what should I say, in a higher rank to compare to, And a lot of samurai had a lot of frustration. Of course, many samurai were like, okay, this is the new Western world. I guess we should obey it. And many people did obey. But again, a different group, of course, said, no, this is not the new government that we were looking forward to. So there's a lot of people very angry. And Saigo Takamori, the last samurai again, he was the kind of leader who was very, very, what should I say, friendly. He has a lot of compassion. Yeah, that kind of person. He's really famous for being a person with a very strong compassion. So he basically listened to all of these frustrations of the samurai, and he said, you guys are right. The way the new Meiji government is running is not good. Even though Saigo Takamori was one of the people who established the government, he was against this policy of just taking away all the rights from the samurai. So he actually left. He actually eventually fought with all of the people, the men, with his allies that he fought together with to establish the government, but he couldn't get along with them. He left, and he established a small organization himself. Yeah. And eventually, though, the Meiji government was afraid of Saigo Takamori because he was a super, super talented military leader. Yeah, commander, I guess. So the new government was afraid that the organization that Saigo Takamori was creating, even though it was called a school for people to learn and be educated, they were a little bit afraid that Saigo Takamori might start a rebellion eventually. So that's the reason why they sent out an army to destroy the school. And Saigo Takamori, in the end, had no choice but to fight back, and then he obviously loses to the Meiji government. There's one government and one small school, right? formal samurai. So they eventually lost, and that is the end of the Civil War. So there's two main wars. The first war was between the old shogunate and the new government. The second war was between how are we going to run this new government kind of war. So there were these two kinds of wars, and then eventually after Saigo Takamori dies, there were no civil wars from there, major civil wars from there. There were small riots, but no big major wars. And then from there again, it leads to all of the wars against foreign power from there, from the Qing dynasty with Russia, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the basic story of the Bakumatsu period. If something was not clear, please let me know, because I will be starting my class style videos soon, which I'll be explaining the history like this right now. So please let me know in the comments if something wasn't clear. If you have any other questions about the Bakumatsu period, it'll be really helpful for me too, to learn what I left out and which part wasn't clear in my explanation. So then everyone, as I always say, the ultimate goal of my life is to make all Japan lovers' dreams come true. So I know that there's a lot of people who are studying Japanese, who are willing to come to Japan to work or travel and such, and even train in a traditional culture. However, I am very afraid that Japan will not be able to make everyone's dreams come true in the future, because we are facing a lot of social problems, we are losing our traditional culture, and the younger generations who are supposed to be carrying on the good things about Japan are dying because of all the social issues being shoved against us. So I want to dedicate my life to try to make Japan a better place. I want to try to solve the social problems. I want to help preserve and also evolve traditional culture and help out the younger generation so they can have a brighter future. And to do that, my goal right now is to achieve 2 million subscribers by January 2023 on my main channel. So all your likes and comments will help to boost my videos, and new viewers who have never seen my videos before, it'd be great if you can help me out. And also, of course, we are working on producing the merchandise we've been talking about, and also every day we are practicing on our performances too, of the music, of the dance, of the martial arts and such. So I hope you can look forward to our future stage performances as well. Okay then everyone, thank you so much for listening. I'm really happy I was finally able to do a proper history class, something educational in this podcast channel too. If there's anything else you'd like me to talk about, like clarify basically, please let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to answer your questions through this podcast too. So, alright, thank you so much guys. Arigatou gozaimashita.